What's happening, my friends? It's the Cassius Morris Show. Thank you for tuning in for episode number 183. This episode is quite unique. Typically, I steer more in the direction of music and entertainment, but I've been feeling lately that there comes a period of time when you have a platform and a medium, especially when it's a platform like this, which is conversation-based. There comes a time for me personally where I don't want to ever pass up an opportunity where I could use my platform to be some sort of pillar towards change. Just to do something to help make positive change in the world. It's fun to entertain. There is a huge need for that and purpose for that. But every once in a while, I want to get into some real topics, because the topics that we're discussing on today's podcast with Councillor Mike Nickel here in the city of Edmonton from Ward 11, these issues are being faced in every single city around the world right now. Okay? Every single city, particularly in North America, is facing issues with race relations, issues with the coronavirus coming out of the pandemic and reopening, and issues with police relations in general. I think at this point, we're at the point where the race relations is one thing and the police relations is almost another, because it's growing into something different now. So that's the main reason why I wanted to do this podcast. It's not because of specifics. It's just sort of to get a general sense of how the city of Edmonton and the council here in the city of Edmonton is approaching these issues, to maybe shed some light on how other cities are doing it too. Obviously, these are unprecedented times, and no one formula is going to be the next formula when it comes to major cities. But I live in the city of Edmonton, so I figured the best I can do is provide some insight on what they're doing in this city to combat these issues. Quick side note, we recorded this interview on Google Hangouts as opposed to Zoom like we typically use, and I guess Google Hangouts has a little bit of trouble when being recorded by our system that you're seeing me on now. So Mike's video is a tad bit laggy, however the sound is perfectly clear. As I said, the sound and the video was coming through perfectly clear, and it wasn't as a result of Google Hangouts, but just due to the fact that my system was recording something from the internet, it was more difficult for my system to record than Zoom. So we jump in at a point where Mike was discussing his history as the president of Artisan Stone Furnishing, and basically just giving the history of how he worked with his family. So that's what you're going to hear when we jump into this interview. Again, apologies. The next time we have a request to use Google Hangouts, we will simply decline, because evidently it appears that the recording is going perfect and there may have been an issue with it. So we are going to go to Zoom. It is all about giving you guys the best quality recording. And I leave no stone unturned here, or I at least did my best, because really my goal for every episode, but particularly an episode like this, is to be a vessel for people to get their questions answered. It's nothing. I didn't really ask the questions that I want to know. I ask what you guys want to know. I left the forum open for this, and I said, send me questions for Councillor Mike Nickel to talk about police relations and coming out of the lockdown. And I got very few questions for this. I got a lot of interaction. I got a lot of I got a lot of comments, but I didn't get a lot of questions. And the one thing I realized is, if you were to sit, the most upset person about police interaction with, a police chief right now, and to tell them you can ask them anything you want, a lot of people wouldn't know where to start. And that's something that I've realized just through putting the questions out. I think a lot of people have a lot of questions because they showed a lot of interest in this interview, and I got a lot of messages about it and a lot of comments about it, but not a lot of questions. And, it could be because Edmonton is a specific city and maybe it doesn't relate to everybody as much, but I think that it was my goal here and my job here, I think is a better way to say it, to come up with that beginning, middle, and end, to come up with those questions for the people that I know they want to know and that maybe they aren't really able to piece together yet. So we don't have all the answers. Of course, Councillor Mike Nickel doesn't have all the answers for the city of Edmonton. He's one out of 12 councillors. And I don't expect him to have the answers, and I'm not here to promise that he has all the answers. Frankly, that would be unfair to do, and it just wouldn't be accurate either. We're in a time where nobody really knows exactly what's next, and nobody really has a firm grasp on certain aspects of this. So I don't expect anything from a councillor, from a mayor, or otherwise, in that department. But what he was able to do very, very well is give insight onto especially how this city has approached it, how it's affected this city, and what we're going to do next. The other main point before we go into this, and the reason I was really talking about defunding police as a concept, is because it is a hot topic, obviously, but also the city of Edmonton has just defunded about $11 million to the police budget. So this was a big thing that I wanted to talk about with the city councillor, to say, okay, you're defunding $11 million from the police. Where's this money going to go? What is this going to do? That was my main question about this. Again, I'm trying to cover all those bases. So with that being said, I hope that this interview can provide some clarity. Again, there's not all the answers, not even about the city of Edmonton, but this is a healthy amount of perspective. And if I can convey anything through this, it's that I think, at least here in the city of Edmonton, the people are being heard. I think the people have been heard when it comes to the things that they want changed. And I think if I take everything that I'm hearing at face value, that there will be change to come. So I think that's an important thing. So without further ado, here's my podcast with Councillor Mike Nicol.
I didn't lose my hair because of politics. It's because I work with family.
It was from the family aspect.
No lie. Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. You want to talk about stress. Holy
is that true?
Crap.
Don't mix business and family?
It is. Listen, yeah, my brother and I, my dad, for years and years. And that's how we socialize. We socialize through work. We're not very normal in that sense.
Right, because you always hear that that's the golden rule. Don't go into business with family. And you guys were sort of gung-ho with that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, if it wasn't for family, we wouldn't have survived. I mean, as a manufacturer, as maybe it's also because we're German, we worry about systems. How do things work? How do they fit together? And building to us is everything. Trying to fix systems, trying to do better, trying to build something more, trying to get value added to whatever we're doing. Return on investment, and I talk about social return on investment. I talked about that 6 years ago, and it's kind of funny. A lot of politicians now in the city claim it's their own, but I started talking that a long time ago before they even. Yeah, very much so. I said, why throw money at a problem if you're not going to measure what you're doing? Politicians love throwing money at a problem, hoping it sticks to the wall. And we've seen that over and over. And we're going through that right now. And just stop the crazy. Then just track what people are doing and hold them accountable for the money they're spending. If it's working, great, we can expand it. If it's not, take them aside, say, we got to change. And if they don't want to change, well, guess what? You get to go.
Right. And I love that approach. Yeah. It seems like a lot of people in politics. Yeah, it seems like a lot of people in politics, they seem to be very locked into whatever system that they're in. And I would like to see more people with that attitude. Like, if this isn't working, let's just make a quick change instead of getting more locked into it. Because you seem to be like good with like something that's tangible, just making quick changes and interchangeable things.
Very much the attitude of continuous improvement.
Yes.
You got to, it's how we did it in our business is the same approach I use in politics, is that you're not going to hit a home run every day. Yeah. It just doesn't work that way. You make little changes every day, constantly improving your system. That means involving your employees, your staff, the community, whatever your I've always looked at my customers as gold and my suppliers as strategic customers. You work together because it's got to be a win-win. Yeah. I don't believe in win-lose. And so you got to have an eye for it, and you got to be open to everybody has good ideas. And and then sometimes you try it and it works. Sometimes they don't. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The trick is don't make a huge mistake.
Right. Yeah.
Huge.
Not something that's unfixable.
And and then that kills you. Right. You're done. You're over.
Exactly.
No, don't do that.
No, but that's a good rule of thumb.
Evolution, not revolution.
Yes,
Yeah.
evolution, not revolution. That's nice. I like that one. So let's fast forward 2020. We've sort of I think we've it's fair to say we've passed a big portion of the climax of the COVID-19 crisis. At least in my view, since we're reopening a number of things. What is the number one issue in the eyes of Edmonton when it comes to council? Is it the virus right now, or is there another issue that's top priority at this point?
Well, the virus is the cause on top of the oil price drop,
Hmm.
and so yeah, I've been arguing for 4 years now. We should have been changing course 4 years ago, preparing for the oil price drop, and now COVID. So these shocks are now the echo effect is that we're looking at structural unemployment of over 10 to 12%, maybe 15%. On top of that, we're looking at maybe a reoccurrence of the virus.
Hmm.
Do we have to reshut things down? It's important to note that the city can't shut things down, right, without the permission of the province. Healthcare is the province's business, right? And the feds are also into this, so
Yeah.
we have to react to their mandates. What is problematic, and what I've I've learned from the system is that I just still don't believe the city has a good evaluation mechanism. I remember asking several months ago, "Where's our doctor? Where's our advice that we were getting about Dr. Hinshaw would make her statements, and then we would have to deal with the granularity or the mechanics down on the street level of it."
Right.
That presentation never came to council. That to me, that person was never there.
Hmm.
And so structurally, in terms of what we can do, what we could not do, what we should do, what we should not do, I think there were some missed opportunities. But we got to learn from that, right?
Yeah.
So the opportunity going forward is to as we slowly open stuff up, is not to repeat the same mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Continuous improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of the day, it is, I do not feel that the province, the city, and the federal government, they didn't coordinate strong enough. The province certainly doesn't understand the granularity of running a city, right?
Hmm.
So sometimes things got a little confusing. We just got to talk about the legal framework,
Yeah.
because when you shut things down, or when you want to put people in a certain place because they have their vulnerable population, and they have issues, right? That deals with their privacy rights, their charter rights, and so on. I mean, these are complicated things,
Very.
but as a city, we just need guidance. Just tell us what we can do, what we can't do. And there was some struggle with that. And so as we move forward and we reopen, it's like when we were talking, I've been talking to some businesses, why can they reopen? We can't.
Mm-hmm.
You see, you're getting into this needless discussion. It has to be yes or no. What, and I've been asking this for months. What does exactly the reopening look like? What are the metrics we have to meet? If everybody has to wear masks, okay, everybody wear masks. Let's get on
the
with
same
it.
page at
But
least.
don't don't haw, right? Just define it.
Yeah.
And I still think we still have a problem here. We're not, look, if I asked you, do you think would you wear a mask out there? Your reply to me, well, no, it's my freedom. It's this. I have privilege, that kind of thing. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But can we say from a medical perspective, you have to wear a mask?
Right.
Because if you go to Asia, for example, it's in their culture.
Mm-hmm.
If you got a cold in Japan or China, you wear a mask.
I think it's the
right?
law in California right now as well.
So there we go. Because there's smarter people than us assessing the COVID. I'm not a doctor.
Is that possible in Alberta or in Edmonton, do you think, to make it legal? Or illegal not to wear one?
I do not know. My propensity is, as an individual and as a businessman, I wear a mask now,
Mm-hmm.
right? I just go out there and I do it because I also meet lots and lots and lots of people, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very, very careful that I do not want to be a vector for COVID.
Right. Well, no, definitely not. Nobody in council or otherwise should be, especially if you're in a position of leadership, I think you should definitely be doing that.
So let's take the question about buses. We were talking about, should people wear masks on buses? And administration has come back and said to us, well, we can't ask for that, but we can't mandate it. That's actually a health provincial call, and then they worried about enforcement. So somebody standing at a bus stop not wearing a mask, who's going to enforce that?
Right.
And that's where it starts to get tricky, as you can see. So
Definitely. And that makes total sense, because you're sort of asking that people do something, like the signs on store windows that say please wear a mask, but it's not legal, or it's not illegal not to wear a mask. So technically, if I'm to walk in there, who's going to enforce that? So that must be very challenging for the city.
And there's the issue of private property. You walk into my house, can I demand that you wear a mask?
Right.
In my house, yes. Place of business is private property with common access. So, anyways, I'm not that. Okay, listen. I never said I was the smartest guy in the room. So I was hoping
Neither have
other
I.
people,
No, I get.
I know I'm not the smartest guy in the room.
No, but
right?
you're making
so
perfect
there's no
sense.
magic bullet here.
No.
So every day you gotta keep looking at the question and fill in the details. But what everybody needs now is clarity, right? Just clarity. And it's just like we don't have it enough. Certainly, if there's there is the talk about the reoccurrence of COVID, because as these things, they mutate or they change or whatever. Okay, what does that look like? I don't know.
Exactly.
Not right now. I'm just trying to keep some businesses alive and deal with a lot of constituents right now. The economy is going to be the issue going forward. No question after this.
And that makes perfect sense. And, I mean, from the standpoint of a resident of the city, a proud resident of the city, I don't expect any one person in this situation to know exactly what to do or know exactly what to expect. Because, I think you guys have been doing a great job, because when you're given a situation so unprecedented, I don't think you can expect it to be handled without any sort of bumps in the road, so I think it's being done very well. I want to ask you about the Edmonton police budget. We just saw that there was $11 million that was cut from the budget, and now, I don't want to misword this. Was it being given to a citizen task force, or where was this money being allocated to?
Reports are coming back. What happened really in the last couple of weeks is that obviously we've heard some very terrible stories, very, very terrible stories about large populations that are disenfranchised from the system. We know that. Yeah. That's clearly, and that's got to be dealt with. And so in terms of, now, I am not the panel expert on the matters of the police commission and these sorts of things. My ward, Mill Woods, is probably the most ethnically diverse ward in the entire city, with Councillor Bangas. If you've ever been down to Mill Woods, it's like the United Nations down there.
It's very diverse.
We got everybody.
Definitely.
Yeah, very, very diverse. And so as I look at the budget, the police, and so people have to understand, first of all, city council can't tell the police what to do, right? That's why we have a police commission. There's a separation between what all city council can do is set the budget.
Right.
The police commission runs the actual police department, and that's by provincial law. And it's really important to understand, because we don't want politicians, let's be quite honest, jumping in and telling the police chief what to do. That's just bad for everybody.
It's muddy waters.
We know that at the top. Yeah. And so we have 2 councillors on the police commission, and then citizens at large, and we appoint those people, and they get to run that big budget. So now we turn around and we have these issues and problems that are not new. These are long-standing historical grievances. Yeah. Fair enough. And so as for me, I look at the problem as a systemic problem. So understanding yesterday, what do I got to do today to fix things going forward, right?
Yeah.
And so we passed a lot of process, a lot of motions. I will be honest, I'm not exactly sure how all that's going to shake out. There are other people better at that than me. I always talk about social return on investment. Yeah. If I'm putting money into a program or something like that, it's not about the money. Government, cities, provinces, we're in the business of being compassionate and helping those that are vulnerable. But I'm not here to throw money on a fire either. We can't do this in perpetuity. So yes, I think the police department needs improvement.
Mm-hmm.
There's no argument from this counselor, and I don't think the police chief will argue that. For example, let's talk about the issue of civilian oversight over complaints against the police department.
Yeah.
I don't think people are going to argue that anymore. The chief certainly doesn't. That's what I've heard. I'm not going to. We talked about that years ago. I don't think the lawyers will argue that, but the province has to make that change.
Mm-hmm.
So the Police Act is going to open up, and again, we structurally have to deal with, put our 2 bits into that, and they have to tell us how this is going to work. So yeah, we gotta fix it. It's not going to be overnight. I believe in pieces of it. Does it? I said this many years ago. Does a police officer with a gun and a badge have to show up to every call? No,
that's a good point.
Obviously not. So what does this talk about? This talks about dispatching issues, streaming issues.
Yes.
Now we get back into the system questions about properly assessing what the customer call is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on one extreme, I have people saying that the police are exhibiting behavior that is totally unacceptable.
Yeah.
Excessive use of force and so on, those sorts of things. At the other end, I've got constituents saying the police are not showing up when I'm calling them, right? So obviously reform is necessary. The shape and the form of it is much to do with how the dispatch system works, training of the police, and who's showing up to the calls, and then also dealing with the justice system. If you don't think we don't have problems in the criminal justice system, we do.
Yeah.
It's not working either. So the police can, here's the other side of the coin. The police catch a really bad guy, and that person's out on bail right away.
Mm. Yeah. There's so many issues with it. That's the thing.
Yeah. And then there we have, question, I remember MP Diop, you wouldn't remember this, was a columnist for the Edmonton Sun.
Okay.
And the police literally tried to capture him unjustly in a sting, tried to fake a charge against him.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, that was back in the 1990s.
I got to look into this.
Right? Yeah, and so you see, so there's another side that, this is the history of things.
Right.
So, yeah, we gotta, but we have to put in the system has to be better than the people in it, to be quite honest, because you know what? You and I will come and go.
Right.
So we have to put in better continuous systems and a big chunk of this better system is reporting on what you do.
Yeah.
If there was one criticism I would lay at Hartman's feet, you have the data, then share it, put it out there, right? Show us what you're doing.
Such as like body cams?
No. This is just, this is not the police department. Let me take that back. This is the police commission, right? Because the police department. Where are your metrics? Where are your targets? Where are your outcomes? What have you been doing with the money I'm giving you? And show me what you're doing well. Show me what you're doing poorly, right? And we can enhance the well and then deal with the poorly stuff. But you can't keep not talking about it. You got to put it out there. That's why I'm a big believer in measuring what you do and then reporting it, because that way you hold people and money accountable. Yeah. And you just can't keep throwing money into the system with not getting better results.
I completely agree with that on a base level, on an entire level. I mean, it's a difficult thing, 100%. I mean, and as a member of council, I mean, and again, speaking as a citizen, just the topic of potentially abolishing police is very shocking to me. Was this shocking to council? Is this shocking to you? I mean, when you think about the potential dangers associated, what's the conversation like with that? I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm not a person talking about abolishing the police. It's an absolute non-starter for me, and always will be. It's just not practical. It's just not grounded in my reality. And so this defund to abolish of the police department, they can make that argument. I'm just not buying into that. I just mechanically can't see how it works. Yeah. I always ask these folks, if you have an idea, you bring me a solution, not a problem, right? What is your solution to the problem that confronts you, right? That's the rule for good employees. A good employee brings you solutions, not problems.
That's a good rule.
A good customer brings you opportunity. So that's what you should see this as. This is the opportunity for improvement, for changing this, because the system has changed. When I was a kid, I could stay out till midnight, till the lights came off, right? Run around the neighborhood and go back in. I grew up on a farm. Our farm used to be where the Midwest Hospital sits, and there was really never an issue with being out. It was different, and the police were looked at differently. But obviously, that's not today. I worry about. I got 2 teenage sons, and if they're past 11 o'clock, I start to worry. Yeah. Right. My mom, I don't know. I have to think about my mom on the farm. She would let us run out there till midnight, right out on the farm.
And just right out there. And she wasn't worried.
No, because we were in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
you see, I grew up partially on an acreage, so there is an innocence to that.
Yeah. And that's obviously changed. Technology's changed. Information sharing's changed. The complexity of the problems have changed. I remember talking to Father Al Hubenig. We used to do a lot of granite work, and I did. Father Al Hubenig hired our company to do some stonework for a Catholic church. We did a lot of work for him. And I asked Father Hubenig, and this is a long time ago. This was back in the 90s, I think. I said, Father Hubenig, who was pretty old at that point, not that old, but old enough. I said, what's the difference between the problems we're facing now in the 1990s and the 2000s? Then when you were a priest? He said, well, Mike, poverty used to be single Caucasian males who had alcohol problems. That was basically it, what we were dealing with in general across society. And then he looks at me now, he says, Mike, it's totally different. Yeah. Totally different. Addiction issues, oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. There are so many. And now they haven't gotten less complex. They've gotten more complex.
Definitely.
And
with technology.
But have our systems kept up? Yeah, have our systems kept up for that accommodation? And what's the most effective, efficient way of dealing these things? Social justice is everybody's business, but you can't do it on an empty bank account either.
Yes.
So there it is. You have, so when they say defund the police, okay, I can take money out of the police department, but what are you going to do with it? Just show me what you're going to do with it. And if it's a good idea, don't be ideological. We're surrounded by political fundamentalists, right? It's either, so they're over here. They're just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you can go in the States and you can see this political bigotry where people in the middle don't even know who to talk to anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm just not that person. I'm clearly about fixing things. And if you got a good idea, if you're a union guy or a New Democrat, I don't care if you're a business guy or a conservative. I don't care. Just give me what's
up here.
And that's, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And but one thing we do have to face is that we have to speed up. We can't let these systems continue to grind and grind and grind. It's not working. It's broken. It's so broken, and we got to fix it.
Yes, we definitely do. And that's the
Does that make sense?
It completely makes sense. And let me tell you, the purpose of this, I think people need to hear a member of council saying that. I think people need to hear someone in that leadership position say things aren't working and we're looking to change it, because I don't know if people always know that. I think a lot of the time people assume that the people in power are somehow against them, and sometimes they are. So I think it's good for people to hear that. So thank you for coming on and sharing this with me, and thank you for your hard work.
Oh, no worries. And I'm hoping that something concrete will happen for a change, something material. I have a saying, and I'll leave you with this. Politicians are notorious for process. They love process. It's their only substitute for results. I'm only interested in results. And I'm not a career politician. And so with what time I got left, I'll just keep pushing.
I love that. Mike Nickel, thank you so much. And there you have it. My exclusive interview with Councillor Mike Nickel of Ward 11 in the city of Edmonton. Really interesting conversation. Really enlightening. This is not an easy job. You know, if you are running a major city in any capacity, it's not an easy job. But when you add the elements that we just discussed, it becomes almost unthinkable to me. And there's certainly tons of areas where tons of different cities can do better. There's areas where Edmonton could do better, and I think Mike Nickel would be the first person to tell you that. But I do get the sense that there's a concerted effort being given, and I appreciate that, because these are unprecedented times, and that's what we got to remember. The people running cities, the people running government, there's sort of this illusion that they have it all figured out, that we're the people with no clue out here, and the people inside of council and of Congress, and I guess in the United States and inside of these governments, have all the answers, and that they're, and you know, it's just not the case. They have all the answers about a lot of things, but when it comes to something like this, not everybody has all the answers, you know, and they're just human beings trying to come up with a solution, just like you and me. So I'm not, you know, taking sides with that or anything like that. I'm just saying, I'm not even saying cut some slack. I'm just saying they're human too. So I appreciate their work, and I appreciate everybody out in the streets and on social media having their voices heard. I think you should stand up for what you believe in, whether it's keeping everything closed to prevent the virus from spreading more, or whether it's reopening, or whether it's rights for police, or whether it's rights otherwise for the people, or civilian rights. I'm cool with all of that. I think this is the beauty of the world, that we're all here and we all see it in a different way. And while I may not agree with the way that you see it, and you may not agree with the way that I see it, I might be able to find a piece within your view that I can somehow relate to. And that's the beauty of consciousness. That's the beauty of this world. The beauty of figuring it out, if you ask me. So thanks for tuning in. Until next time, this is Cassius Morris saying, rock on.